Hey, this is Kart. Thank you so much. For 2,000 subscribers, we're going to do something a little bit different than we ever have before. We're doing an interview, and this is the very first time I've ever interviewed anyone, and I've chosen this person because I feel he's extremely well-versed in everyone's favorite mode, which is multiplayer. Actually, a lot of people kind of hate multiplayer, or maybe they just don't quite understand it. So I invited him here to kind of explain maybe how we could get better at multiplayer. So first, I just wanted to ask a few things about you, Zab. First of all, when did you start playing Mario Kart Tour?
Hello everyone, first of all, and I started playing Mario Kart Tour around May of 2021.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
My first tour was the Bowser's versus Donkey Kong tour. That was my first tour that I ever played, and I have been hooked with the game since that day.
That's awesome. And you're also free to play as well, correct?
Yeah, 100% free to play.
Awesome. And now, it's funny because we've raced each other so many times that I kind of forget how it all started. When did we start racing each other? What was? Do you remember when that was?
Well, actually, we started. Officially, we started playing together when you started live streaming.
Okay.
I found that fascinating. For some reason, I really liked when we started live streaming.
You were probably one of 5 viewers at the time.
It was 5 years, but things have fortunately have grown since then.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the idea that you were starting to live stream and you were inviting your viewers to play with you,
Mm-hmm.
and I took that opportunity. But actually, the unofficial way is that we actually played together for the first time around August, when I think it was the Frost Tour or the Kamek Tour.
Okay.
I remember playing with you randomly in the standard races.
Okay.
We played like 6 races. I specifically remember that. Like, you won 4 races, and I don't remember. I may have won like 1 race, but yeah.
So just by chance through standard races, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just don't remember that.
Yeah, because I think I remember when you first started like replying to the chat, and so I knew that I was racing somebody that I was chatting with, and I do think I remember just getting frustrated because I was losing, more times than I'm used to this person I've never heard of, and but now the more that we've raced, the more I got to know that you're actually really, really good at the game. I get less frustrated losing to you than I did at first. So.
At the beginning, you were winning a lot against me. I was. I think I was a newbie about a year ago. I was picking up stuff, how to run faster, how to use my items better. But okay, I have grinded a lot in the multiplayer mode the past few months.
Yeah.
I think now the situation is a little bit more equal. But yeah.
Yeah, we have good races, so yeah, I appreciate all the times you've jumped in and how you're helping with the Discord and everything else like that. So,
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So next, when you're not playing Mario Kart Tour, what do you enjoy doing?
As you probably know, I am a very big music lover. I have an obsession with classical music,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the modern era and the postmodern era. So I listen to a lot of music. I'm also a very big film lover.
Mm-hmm.
I like all films, from blockbusters to more art house movies. I really like the art of movie making.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of one of our greatest achievements as a humanity.
Yeah.
And And besides that, I mean, I like playing chess and Minesweeper from time to time, but yeah, I don't play them as competitively as MKT.
Yeah, and we've talked before, and I just thought it was pretty fascinating that both of us are classically trained musicians. I'm a classically trained vocalist, and so you do a little bit more with the piano. So I just think that's cool. Maybe there's some sort of connection between Mario Kart and music. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think even Aki used to sing in a choir.
Yeah.
So
He sang in one of his videos too. That was pretty cool. So.
Yeah. Very good voice.
Well, all right, let's get into it. So, all right, let's kind of start by talking to those that might be more of a beginner, and then we'll kind of work our way towards more advanced techniques for multiplayer. So, as far as advice for the beginning player that wants to reach tier A if they're free to play, or if they want to go all the way to S+9, so someone who wants to get better at standard races, where do they start?
I think the most important thing in standard races is to learn the lines well. And I mean, the main mistake that people make in worldwide races is that they use lines for better ACR scoring. And these lines are most of the times not the best. I mean, for example, in GBA Snowland T, at the end there is a giant ramp that leads to the finish line. I have seen so many people taking that line, and it's so slow. You can pass everyone. I'm afraid that I'm sounding a little bit condescending, but I mean, it's important. I mean, yeah, if you have to, the key to this is to take the lines as sharp as you can possibly can. That's the most important thing to do, because to be entirely honest with you, in order to do consistently well in the worldwide races, item management, what special skill you're using, cards and gliders, all of these things don't matter nearly as much as taking the most optimal lines.
Yeah. All right. So the tightest line as possible. So don't go for the coins, right?
Yeah, don't go to the coins. I mean, in Mario Kart 8, coins are useful because they increase your top speed, but there is no such thing in Mario Kart Tour. Coins are purely cosmetic when it comes to racing.
Yeah, and it's funny because someone mentioned something about coins being, making you just a little faster. I tested that out, and for whatever reason in Mario Kart Tour, they decided not to let the coins make you go faster. So don't go for those coins. Earlier, you mentioned about choosing a driver with a special skill. So let's talk about, your driver, kart, and glider selection. So with standard races, what do you recommend as far as those choices go?
I mean, the skill, as long as it isn't coin box, in my opinion, it's good for worldwide races. I mean, many people would say that hearts are best, or triple mushrooms, but in worldwide races, to be entirely honest with you, I don't think it matters all that much. These stuff are for later, but I mean, items like the triple green shows, Lucky 7, triple bombs. I mean, even items like that can really help you. Giant banana, triple bananas, and the list goes on.
Okay.
Even fire flower, ice flower, all these items are good. I mean, it's usually items that give you some type of protection.
Yeah.
That they are usually the best.
Okay. And and speaking of protection, a lot of times I notice players that have their auto item still on. I can tell because they always drop their items every time they go through the blocks. So
that's a huge blunder.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of segues in.
I have even seen people in Reddit. Some people on Reddit are advising others to use auto item on.
Oh,
Because
really?
your item usage can be unpredictable. I mean, I cringe, to be honest with you.
Huh.
When I read this stuff, it's like so wrong.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know there were.
Very few people. I mean,
Yeah.
I check Reddit like once a blue moon.
Hmm.
I'm curious what people are saying, especially about multiplayer. You can see some very funny comments on that.
I'm curious
Uh,
about those articles. Yeah.
yeah, and some people, I mean, there are very few. I have seen that oh, use auto item on. It doesn't matter that much. I mean, it matters a lot.
Yeah,
That's
it sure
like the
does.
most important thing to do.
When I noticed
Turn it
that,
off.
yeah, if I notice that someone's dropping items every time for they cross the blocks, I'm holding my red shells just waiting for them to cross the blocks. So yeah, very important. What
Yeah.
about other settings other than having auto item turned off? What other settings would you recommend?
I think the most important thing is to keep auto item off.
Hmm.
As far as smart steering, manual drifting, and all that kind of stuff, the drift button and all of this. I mean, everyone should play the game as they like. I think that, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I think the second most important setting is smart steering.
Okay.
Some tracks are important. It's very important on some tracks to have smart steering off because there are some shortcuts that you can perform without a mushroom, and especially in a more competitive environment, these shortcuts are a must
Hmm.
in order to win.
Yeah, I agree with that. I kind of think about
I
Dino
mean,
Jungle with that big
yeah.
shortcut, and it's funny because there's certain no item shortcuts like that one where I see people all the time going the long way around, and it would save so much time to learn how to turn that smart steering off and take that no item
Yeah,
shortcut.
yeah, for sure. I mean, the shortcut at the Dino Jungle is the perfect example. So many people are just going around that, and you don't need a mushroom. You
Hmm.
don't even need to hope. It's still faster.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I personally play only with drift button with smart steering off
Hmm.
and auto item off, of course.
Hmm.
And I think it suits me. I mean, some people say, okay, in some tracks it's better to use manual drifting, but yeah, that's a
Yeah.
more advanced topic.
Yeah, and for those of you that want to try different settings, one thing you might notice is that if you put manual on and smart steering off, the handling for some reason is so much more touchy. I mean, you can turn sharper, but you really have much less control of your cart while you're in a drift. So I think that manual on, smart steering on, and manual off, smart steering off using drift button, those kind of handle very, very similarly. So, yeah, play around with the settings, but I think manual on, smart steering off, that setting is kind of for advanced players, and it can make it a little bit tricky to control the cart if you're not used to that setting.
Yeah, I mean, I personally can't handle manual drifting. I mean, the steer button, I can't do it.
Hmm.
I'm too used to the drift button, but some players, I think that JF is playing with no button and he has a manual drift on,
Oh,
and
wow.
he's one of the best players. He plays like that in all of the tracks, and I have no idea how he prefers playing that way. But
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Here's another setting that sometimes people wonder about is the screen orientation, whether it's portrait or landscape. So I'm a portrait player, and I've seen some of your videos, and I noticed that you're a landscape player. So any difference there? What would you recommend there?
I think the only reason why I personally prefer landscape mode is that I mean, I've tried playing it on portrait, but I do too many accidental item usages with that.
Okay.
So I personally play with landscape and left-right mode. It's like holding a controller in a way.
Hmm.
And one of the main reasons why I prefer this type of control scheme is that you can use the rear view button way more easier, and you have actually a better view, because the thing is that rear view is, in my opinion, very important. But if you like play on portrait, the camera is too zoomed on your driver.
Yeah.
But if you play on landscape, you can get a much better view on what, for example, the person who is behind you. I mean, you can see if they have a red shell.
Mm-hmm.
You can get, I think, more. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
A little bit.
You're fine. You get sort of a wider view, right?
Yeah, you have a wider view.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get more information.
Yeah.
More easily, in my opinion. I see people. I mean, most people actually play on portrait. I belong on the minority on this matter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
And I think that's probably because when the game came out, that was the only option. And so, speaking for myself, I've tried landscape a couple times, and I'm so used to portrait now that I just can't get myself to play as well in landscape. So really, it's personal preference. But wow, some of the points that you just made are really good points. So I think those that might be just coming into the game, maybe think about those things and try both out, and whichever suits you best, go for that one. So
I mean, portrait, to be totally honest with you, I mean, yeah, I think the rear view button is more accessible while playing on landscape, but I think that one of the big pluses of portrait mode is that you can steer and hope more easier at the same time. I have on my mind the shortcut at the end of Sky Garden, for example. I mean, I have seen you like steering to the left, but also hoping, and that is a little bit tricky to do with landscape.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Yep. Yeah. So
there are. Unfortunately, landscape is not the perfect way to play this game, but it definitely has its pros, in my opinion.
I like the points that you made with that, so that's great.
Personally, I just think that the rear view button is very, very important.
Yeah,
it's an important function of the game.
Yeah, I've been trying to use it more often, and it can be tricky, but yeah, it's very, very useful to see that when someone behind you's got that red shell. So, now speaking of like red shells and multiplayer, I would say one of the most common things I've heard. So I'm part of a lot of different Mario Kart Facebook groups and Discords and stuff. I'm always hearing about these hackers that are all over the place in worldwide races, and that everyone's hacking because you throw a red shell at them and they get knocked out for a second, and then they just speed off as if they have this mushroom. And it's a very common thing. So what's going on? Do we have a lot of people hacking multiplayer, or is it lag, or what is going on there with what you see?
I mean, that's a common complaint. I mean, these complaints always exist in every multiplayer game. People always accuse other people for hacking, but I mean, it's not that case in MKT. Of course, it's just lag. The key thing to remember is that unlike Mario Kart 8, where if you see an item on your point of view hitting another person, I mean, in Mario Kart 8, if that happens, then they are dead 99% of the time. But in MKT, that doesn't really work like that. In MKT, people die because in their own POV they have hit an item. So, I mean, if I throw a red shell on Sparta and if I see on my screen that it hit him, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that if the red shell hits Sparta in Sparta's point of view.
Yeah.
So that's the important thing to keep in your mind.
Yeah. So sometimes our device doesn't see the item of protection that the other person has. So from our, you say POV, for those of you out there, that means point of view. So from your point of view, you see no item for protection. So you shoot a red shell at them and that shows a hit. But from their point of view, they had an item protection. So, and we see this too, if you have two different players playing each other and they both are recording their races, it's very interesting to see the comparison between the two recordings, because you'll see that scenario all the time, where one point of view sees something differently than another, and really it's lag, and it's just something, it's a part of the game, and you just kind of got to get used to it in a way.
You have to accept it and deal with it. But yeah, absolutely, everything you said is true. I mean, and also a very important factor to have to keep in mind when dealing with laggy rooms is that the person that you're playing against is always like 1 centimeter above of what you see. I mean, sometimes people are you can snipe someone with a green shell, but the other guy just goes on like nothing happened. That happens because if you target someone with a green shell, you have to calculate it a little bit and aim when they it's just hard to explain it.
So basically, you just have to aim a little bit ahead of where they are. So kind of throw it in front of them. Try to throw it in front of them.
You have to aim where they're about to go.
Yeah.
That's what I keep in mind. Yeah,
exactly.
That's what I was trying to say. Sorry, my English is not my first language.
Well, you're doing great. Doing great. English is my only language, so I greatly respect anyone that can speak multiple languages. So, yeah, you're doing great.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so that was Xöbbias' advice on winning races in standard races and worldwide races. So now let's move on to the more competitive side of multiplayer. So, Xöbbias, you've been Ruby in Mario Kart Tour Competitive, which is a Discord server of the best players in the world when it comes to multiplayer. And you have to approach competitive multiplayer differently in many ways, don't you? From worldwide standard races. Would that be accurate to say?
Yeah, that's more than accurate. The difference is night and day when we're talking about lounge and competitive gameplay.
Yeah. So what would be like the things that stand out to you? What's the biggest difference between playing just, your standard races and then going to this Discord where everyone's trying their very best to win and they're all really, really skilled? What are the main differences between those two modes of multiplayer?
The biggest difference is that, if you're skilled enough in worldwide races, you're going to outrun everyone. That's the truth. If your lines are good, you're going to be miles far away from everyone else in the room. But in lounge, the problem is that there are 7 other people who are equally or more faster than you. So things get a little bit more complicated because you can't rely, I will go far away, blue shells may attack me, but I don't care, everything will go my way. That line of thinking just doesn't exist in a competitive environment. Everyone is too fast, so if a blue shell hits you, you're dead. It's an important event in the race. Or when shock comes, which is everyone's favorite item in the game. Shocks. It's funny because if you speak to people who are playing Mario Kart more casually, everyone says that blue shell is the worst item, blue shell sucks, blue shell this, blue shell that, but no one is talking about shock. And this is the item that the competitive players mainly complain, because if everyone is close together and the shock happens, then it's a game changer.
Yeah. And you can tell who's going for it too, in a way, like when you see their glider selection and they're going for a shock specialty glider. So for anyone that might not know, shock means lightning. So anytime you hear that word shock, that means lightning. So I see that a lot in lounge. I'm looking for how many people have a shock glider. So I'm trying to think in my mind, all right, if I see a lot of shock gliders, there will almost definitely be a shock towards the end of this race. So
yeah. I mean, the chances of a shock happening, I think it's about like 60%,
Okay.
something like that, 60 or 70%. There are races the shock never happens, but most of the times shock will occur at least once. There are some very weird cases that shock may occur 2 times, but it's very, very, very rare.
So you almost have to plan for shock happening. You almost have to like assume that it's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, shock is very important because the thing with MKT is that the races are a lot shorter and shocks lasts for an eternity in this game. If you get shocked, it's like a crime punishable by death. I mean, I don't know why Nintendo. I mean, in my personal opinion, I think shock needs to get nerfed a little, but that's another point.
I'd agree too. Yeah.
But the thing is that you have to revolve your game plan around shock. I mean, if you're going to front run, that your main idea is okay. Can I get a huge lead? Because if you can get a huge lead, maybe shock might not affect your match. But if you stay in the middle, you have to play more defensively because you may try to get items in order to protect yourself from shock. But there are other things to worry about because if you're stuck too much in the middle and no shock happens, okay, what are you doing? You're going to have a mediocre race or a bad one. And you have also to play very defensively, avoiding items from left and right. So there are many, 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 many things that you have to worry when it comes to shock.
Yeah. And one thing that I know that I've learned from you when it comes to competitive racing is the whole concept of shock dodge. So I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit. So what is shock dodge, and what is your mindset with shock dodge going into each race? And does it matter? Does the track matter? And just anything that you can think of when it comes to shock dodge. So what is shock dodge?
Okay, shock dodge is a play style that basically revolves around dodging shock. What I mean by saying that is that if you stay in the middle positions, I mean, if you stay around third and sixth, you have a high chance of obtaining a heart. We have, by the way, to emphasize that small-sized hard drivers are the way to go in competitive multiplayer. Anyway, so you need to farm and fish for items that, like hearts, stars, or mega mushrooms that can help you to dodge shock.
Even bubbles.
Even bubbles, yeah. Bubble is a very useful item, but but let's not complicate things now, for now.
All right, so hearts,
Because I think bubble is a very good skill, especially on some tracks. But I may talk about that later.
Okay.
If we have time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is that one of the main approaches to that play style is that you want to save your powerful item for the beginning of the second lap.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, because if you get like shocked early on the race, it's usually, especially if the track is a long one, it may not matter that much because you will have the time to recover. But getting shocked at the second lap is usually a death sentence because you won't have the time to fish for better items and catch up. So one of the main play styles is that you try to get a powerful item at the middle positions and try to keep it around the beginning or the middle of the second lap. But that really depends on the track. It depends on what items your opponents are having. I mean, if it's like a small size track, it's always better to spam your protection and your powerful items, because if you get like red shield once, then you're dead.
Yeah, It's happened a lot to me. Yep.
Me too as well. I mean, no one is immune to red shields.
So, all right. So we for a competitive multiplayer, we assume shock will happen at least 60% of the races. So we plan for that. We go for shock dodge, which is hearts, which is giant mushroom. And so the strategy, what you're saying, is kind of hold those shock dodge items till the second lap, because if you get shocked first lap, you've got plenty of time to catch up. If you get shocked second lap, that can often ruin your race. So
I mean, most of the times you want to keep that protection for the second lap, because I mean, sometimes I have seen people like holding hearts and using them at the end of the first lap, and they're probably in 6th or 5th place, which are places that you can get in a semi-consistent manner. You can get like hearts or mega mushrooms. So I mean, it's it's quite a complex topic.
Yeah,
and
and there's
depends, as I said earlier, it really depends on what your opponents are planning to do.
Yeah, and you're the one who showed me this chart, and man, it's such a useful chart. If I get a chance to, I'll put a little screenshot of this chart that you showed me. There's so every placement, first, second, third, fourth, all the way through 8th, you have a certain percentage chance of getting certain items. Like if you're in first place, you can get coins, bananas, green shells, but there's a 0% chance of getting shock or mega mushrooms, things like that in first place. Now, once you get further and further in the back of the pack, those percentages completely change. And so it's actually very helpful to know the percentages. So like I said, I'll try to show a screenshot of that, but tell us what you know. What are the basics? What are the most important things to think about when it comes to item percentage according to placement?
I mean, the thing is that it's very important to know where the heart item is obtainable.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important, because as you can probably see, you can obtain hearts at second place, but it's not reliable at all.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go to second place and thinking, okay, I will fish for hearts. It never works like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to keep that in mind, that chart, because one equally important tactic that many people do in lounge is that if the 6th and 7th place players are close together, usually the person in 6th will take bad lines in order to get the box in 7th, because as we see, the items that you can get in the 6th place are not the best.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of the most popular pulls that you can take in the 6th place is a green shell and a mushroom,
mm-hmm.
which is not the most useful thing that you want to pull in 6th. You want items like a mega mushroom or a star or hearts. But in 7th, for example, as you see, you can pull almost consistently mushrooms, mega mushroom, stars, bullet bills. So it's one place. This is like a very big difference, because in 7th you have much better odds of getting more useful items than 6th. I think it's one of the most important tips in general in lounge. Just keep in mind that you can't be confident that you will take powerful items in 6th place.
Yeah, so sometimes you have to drive bad on purpose just to get those great items. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, as long as you don't overdo it and go too far behind, which, it can be a problem, especially in this game. As we said earlier, the races are shorter, and each race has 2 laps in most of the courses.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to overdo it with bagging. You have to keep some distance between the top places.
Yeah.
Top placements. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're fine. And then just a couple other things I want to make sure that we cover. So like in another difference between just the standard races and the competitive multiplayer, like you said about the standard races, doesn't matter all that much the driver, kart, and glider selection, the most important thing is taking tight lines. Now with competitive, you really have to be a lot more picky at the driver, kart, and glider selection. So you mentioned earlier you want small heart drivers usually. You want the small drivers rather than the medium or the large. So in Mario Kart Tour, it comes in 3 sizes. So small, medium, and large. Now, why does that make a difference when it comes to competitive?
Okay. To everyone who is familiar with the meta of previous Mario Kart titles, in games like Mario Kart Wii or Mario Kart 8, the different size of the drivers matters in terms of top speed. Usually, the heavy drivers in the previous Mario Karts they are faster. Mm-hmm. They may have worse acceleration, but they can read. But their top,
the top speed,
but their top speed is very high. Mm-hmm. But in this game, there is a very big difference. All size categories share the exact same top speed. So acceleration. So you want to go with a driver with the highest acceleration. Acceleration, for those who don't know, is the speed that your driver takes in order to regain its speed. Mm-hmm. So if you get hit, you want to recover as fast as possible, and this is easier with a driver like Toad, but it's harder with a driver like Bowser, for example.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So yeah, you're going to get hit a lot, especially if you play competitive. So when you get
hit, sorry for interrupting.
Oh, you're fine.
And there is also another important thing to that. In addition to faster acceleration, something which is equally important is hitbox.
Mm-hmm.
In single player, you usually want to have the largest hitbox as possible. You want like large coin boxers, large boomerang drivers, but here you want the smallest size because most of the courses feel kind of small and they are very narrow, and you can get very easily hit and sniped in this game. Mm-hmm. So you want the smallest hitbox as possible because you are a smaller target, so you are harder to kill.
Yeah, and so that same logic would also apply to karts, wouldn't you say? So in Mario Kart Tour, we've got giant karts and we've got really small karts. So I would assume that we also want the smallest kart possible for competitive play. Is that right?
Of course. Karts have their own heat boxes. Mm-hmm. There are large karts, like the off-roader and the crawler kart. But these two karts are very bad for multiplayer for that reason. You want karts like the Egg 1, 8-bit pipe frame, Festival Girl. The Poison Apple kart is pretty good. Even the Warship karts, which are normal, are pretty good. You basically want small karts. There is a chart in our Discord server where we have all the karts in the game, and they are ranked based on size.
Okay.
If you want to see the list of karts in terms of size by yourself.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And then, so glider, that would be last of all as far as the selections. What would you recommend as far as what glider specialty do you want to choose for competitive?
I think 3 types of glider are the best. Actually, 4 types of gliders are the best for multiplayer, for competitive multiplayer. The most common options are Mega Mushroom glider and Shock glider. Some people like to control Shock, mm-hmm. and they want to stay in the back. Usually, if you play like that, it's better to go with a Shock glider. Mm-hmm. But if you're a player that likes to stay in the middle position and likes to find the dodge for Shock, then the Mega Mushroom glider is the best option. But you can also see some other options. Red shell gliders are quite useful as well. if you are very comfortable with your running skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say that mushroom gliders are very strong as well.
Yeah, especially if the track has a lot of places you can cut through.
Yeah, especially if the shortcut is at the end of the track.
Yeah.
These shortcuts are the most important, basically.
Yeah, awesome. So, competitive multiplayer, small driver, small kart, one of those three specialties when it comes to glider, and you want to plan for shock happening in the second lap. Any other advice that you can think of as far as someone that wants to get into competitive multiplayer?
I think that, okay, it will sound kind of basic, but I think that keeping a good mentality and being calm is very important. I know it sounds very basic, as I said earlier, but it's really, really important. This game is very, very random, and unfortunate stuff can happen at any time. Mm-hmm. So it's best to keep yourself calm, because unfortunate things are going to happen 100%. So you need to be calm and ready to adapt and have the right mentality. Because if you get too mad and angry and resentful, it won't help you in the long run.
Yeah, I definitely have experience with that. So basically, you got to be.
Yeah, it's quite hard to do. I will be entirely honest with you. Sometimes it's very, very hard to keep a calm mind with this game. It can be so infuriating.
Especially when you know the bad luck starts stacking up on top of each other, and it just feels like the game hates you.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to always keep in mind that this game is not fair. You might have avoided all the back spams from first. You might have done insanely good moves, great item usage, but get shocked at the last second and get like from second to sixth or seventh. I mean, stuff like this happen, unfortunately, for better or worse. But that's the beauty of the game, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why I'm playing this game sometimes.
So yeah, you gotta learn how to best play the hand that you're dealt, and it's almost like a good I don't know.
It's like a poker game.
Yeah.
It's like a cards game. I mean, it's a racing game in terms that you have to race fast and take the best lines. But yeah, it's sometimes it's like a card game. You have to play your cards as optimally as possible.
Mm-hmm. And then, lastly, I'm sure you would agree with me on this. It's a game, and games are supposed to be fun. It's something that we do in our leisure, and it's supposed to kind of relieve our stress rather than add to our stress. And so, I think many times people get so into these games that they get stressed out over them, and it's just not worth it. It's just not worth, losing your cool over a game. Just have fun with it, and even if you have a bad round, just learn to be able to kind of laugh it off in a way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, games at the end of the day are for fun and escapism. I mean, real life is hard by itself. We don't need to make it more complicated with a stupid game about a kleptomaniac rabbit who drives carts, as I say.
And that would be Nabbit is who you're referring to.
Yeah, Nabbit. I mean, the whole concept of Nabbit just seems ridiculous to me. I mean, how do you conceive that character? I mean, I don't know. Props to Nintendo for that. But yeah, it's always... Yeah, you have to keep in mind that it's a game. It's for fun. I mean, there is no money involving in it. I mean, especially in our competitive community, there are no money prizes or anything like that. So everyone is playing for fun.
Yep, exactly. Well, I really appreciate you agreeing to do this interview. And I hope,
pleasure.
Yeah, and I hope those of you who are listening, I hope you've learned something. Feel free to ask any questions you like with either Zab or I. Would be more than happy to help you understand anything that you didn't. So go ahead and leave those comments. And thanks for listening. Again, I appreciate the 2,000 subscribers, and so I hope you enjoyed this special interview with Xöbbias. Take care, everyone.
Goodbye.